Okay, and I think we are online. Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Luigi Tozzi, Deputy at SAFE, Food Advocacy Europe. Welcome to our webinar, and welcome also to our guests that will give us all of the information that are such important about this project, the Sisters Project, and about the innovation that we are making. Then we will have a part where we can make an exchange of view about this innovation, how they can apply it. The focus of this webinar is on primary production. So I welcome Diana Lenzi from SEJA. She will help us to talk about the main arguments on this webinar. So I leave the floor to Federica Grassi, my colleague. She will introduce the project and all the part of the agenda. Thank you.
So thank you, Luigi, and thank you everyone for being here. Good morning to all of you. As Luigi mentioned, this webinar is part of the, is one of the tasks that we have to perform under the Sisters Project, which is a Horizon project that kicked off last November, and Sisters stands for Systemic Innovations for Sustainable Reduction of the European Food Wastage. And so we will focus during these years on each stage and each step of the food value chain. And here, as you can see on my screen, the agenda of today's meeting will be divided in three parts, three sections. So the first part, I'll leave the floor to some partners of the Sisters Project. So we will have Carolina, who's the coordinator of the project, introducing the project itself, to have a broad view on what we will do during these years. And then Sergio and Pierre will, so they are partners who are already implementing and developing strategies and innovations to reduce food waste and losses. And they will focus on the results that they already achieved. And then while we will switch to the second part, the second section of the meeting, we will leave the floor to Luigi, my colleague, and Diana Lenzi. So mainly focusing on what the issues are at primary production level when it comes to policies and to solutions and innovation to tackle food losses and waste at European level. And then we will have a short coffee break, and afterwards we will I will give the floor to Angèle Enerini, who will talk and present two other European projects that are related to the topic of today. And at the end of the meeting, we will give the floor to all of you participants, attendees, in case you have questions, remarks, and everything related to this webinar. And yeah, and I will leave you afterwards to have a lunch break or go straight to the 13th meeting of the European Platform for Food Losses and Waste. I'm sorry that these two big events had to clash, but yeah, it's a busy and very flourishing period for everyone. So that was the only day possible to present, to host this webinar. And I wish you all a very good day ahead, a very fruitful and interesting conversation. And I'll stop talking and leave the floor to Carolina to present Sisters.
Thank you very much, Federica. I will share my screen now. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for organizing this webinar. Welcome everybody to it. It's the first webinar that we perform at Sister Project, organized by SAFE with the collaboration of Environ. And well, it's my pleasure to be here today introducing you the whole view of our project. My name is Carolina Peñalba. As Federica said, I'm working at IT Technological Center, that is the coordinator of Sister Project. And well, for those that do not yet know the Technological Center, it's based in Spain, in Zaragoza, and we work in the plastic value chain. So we work at different projects, European, regional, and national, developing well, new materials, packaging. For instance, we work for the aeronautic sector, but in this case, we are well, in relation with this Sisters project. My connection is very unstable, so I will stop sharing the video, okay? So you can hear me well. And as I was saying, this project is in the frame of the Green Deal call. It's funded by the Horizon 2020 program at the European Union. That gives answer to the topic testing and demonstrating systemic innovations in support of the framework strategy, specifically the subtopic reducing food losses and waste at every stage of the food chain, including the consumption, while avoiding unsustainable packaging. That's why we focus on this topic. The project it's funded under this topic, as I say, and with a total budget of 10 million euros, and we will work for 54 months developing
Maybe we have a problem with the connection, Federica.
Yeah, I think Carolina, your connection just froze or something. So
I think that we can stop and try to see if she can do a better connection.
join later. Yeah.
And we can go with the second speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So who's the next?
Yeah. So next speaker that we have is Sergio Quesada from ENCO, who will present their strategies along the food value chain, but in primary production, focusing on primary production. Thank you, Sergio, for being here.
Thank you a lot. Well, let me share my screen because I also have a presentation to share with you. And also I'm going to switch off my video to try to avoid issues with it.
It seems that internet doesn't want to cooperate today. Let's, yeah, be positive.
Can you see my presentation now?
Not yet. Yes, now we can.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
So, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sergio Quesada. I work as an innovation consultant at ENCO, which is a innovation consultancy agency based in Naples, in Italy. We are very experienced in European-funded projects, especially based on the economy, circular economy, exploitation of bioresources, natural resources, and so on, which is very aligned with Sisters. Here at Sisters, ENCO participate as leaders of the activities devoted to the replicability and exploitation of the results. And I am going to present this intervention, which is called Exploitation and Replication Strategies in Primary Production through the Food Value Chain. First of all, before starting, I would like to thank Federica and all the team of SAFE for the great work you are doing towards the impact of the project and for the invitation to this webinar, which is a magnificent opportunity. As you know, in the context of European projects, a strategy to ensure replication and transfer of project results to other contexts shall be included. It entails a clear and sound plan supported by project activities that would allow market replication and transfer to other sectors, entities, regions, or countries through, for example, commercialization and industrialization. The replication and exploitation, on the other hand, is what ensures that the impacts that we describe and that we want to realize, to achieve, are effectively achieved. Obviously,
just a second. Can you put the desk open all the desk, please? We can see just the presentation, but with the slides in the left too.
Like full screen.
Full screen.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Now.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. I was saying that the replication and exploitation is what ensures that the impact are achieved. Obviously, if the project is limited in achieving its technical objectives, but it is not replicated, the impacts on the value chain and on food waste will not be achieved. And that's why these activities are important. We are going to comment very briefly on the first conclusion that we have obtained after our first dissemination activities. ENCO has presented Sisters at a world-class trade fair called Fruit Attraction 2022, which was held in Madrid in October 5th and 6th. At this fair, we had the opportunity to connect and discuss with fruit producers and exporters and distributors and importers in different countries and in different food value chains throughout the world, and to present that the Sisters short chain platform, which is the outcome most related the most with primary production, but also our smart containers mainly. To do this, we briefly interview them about the main concerns and the main pains that the actors of the value chain have at the production level, and we obtained a very valuable input. These are our main conclusions. In the first place, let's say the present business era, which with its emphasis on contributing to sustainable development globally, presents opportunities to business that wish to demonstrate commitment to more ethical and sustainable practices. However, a great obligation towards embedding responsible and ethical practices across all aspects of company operations and delivery, for example, corporate social coherence, would go some way towards resolving the tension between a company's need to maximize profits, while also constructing policies to regulate potentially adverse activities and enact programs to ensure equitable and sustainable development. These stakeholders have confirmed us that indeed governments are in the path to enabling an environment for business to address the sustainable development goals. But however, they are convinced that it will be necessary for governments to also enact appropriate legislation to force business to be more social and environmentally responsible. Currently, normative is not mandatory and is not pressing enough. Private sector will be forced to change more in the future, we are sure, as we move to from a situation where corporate environmental reporting has mainly been driven by the needs of risk management or to provide positive publicity on a company or a brand, to more, let's say, comprehensive monitoring and evaluation of the impacts and effectiveness of environmental and social activities, including, for example, comprehensive systems, evaluations, and procedural indicators. In other words, to be exploitable, sister solution must be attractive to potential clients, to potential customers, in the sense that we have to offer some incentive to our future customers and to our future partners. In the case of production, our surplus distribution platform obviously offers opportunities to market products that were not going to be sold, but contracting this service can be seen as a risky investment for producers who may not be sure of its efficiency, because it is let's say, an unprecedented innovation. Therefore, we have to think about the future of the project in the last years of its execution and in the years after finishing the project, not only in a dissemination strategy, but also in a marketing strategy, and also in the design of a value proposition that offer real incentives and real solution to production systems and to production problems. The main problem of production, especially at Western European level, which was also confirmed by the stakeholders that we meet there, is that producers often get a low price or a low yield for their products. The value chain, in order to be more beneficial, seeks to acquire the raw material at the lowest possible cost, and this is to the detriment of the producers. We have a very useful tool, and it is the sponsorship of large distributors and wholesalers that are key opinion leaders at the national level within the consortium, which are Eroski, ProExport, and Riveredo. Therefore, one of the main actions that we must carry out in this work package, in the work package led by ENCO, is to find a product strategy from the marketing point of view and make this sponsorship to reach the greatest possible number of companies and potential customers. Secondly, a sponsorship by public or regulatory authorities, that is governments, public agencies, that have the power to influence the business of the food value chain is also very important. In conclusion, one of the main lessons of fruit attraction is that the project's replicability strategy must be directed towards two main lines of action. First, disseminating the participation of the consortium-led wholesalers, showing the effectiveness of our platform. And secondly, our platform and of course all the rest of the outcomes we have. And secondly, to connect the regulatory agents that can sponsor us. This is our starting point. Now I will go a little deeper into this situation in our replicability plan deliverable, but this is just a broad overview. Building on this starting point, it is now our task to develop an action plan to address it. In this slide, you can see the scheme of the plan that we are designing. The first steps, opportunity identification, of course, is already done, and value propositions are already defined. So first of all, we have the technology transfer. Technology transfer refers to the process of conveying results stemming from our scientific and technological research to the marketplace and to the wider society. On this slide, you can see all the steps that we have to handle. It is clear that the discovery, disclosure, and evaluation phases are covered in the description of the project, of the action. The protection of intellectual property is also covered in the project. It is another of the ENCO's tasks. And as you can see, we have to cover a part of marketing, another of license that refers to the operational freedom and exploitation conditions, and a main important part of product development in the left side of the slide. Product development refers not only to the validation of innovation, which are developed in the project, but to add functionalities and characteristics that make it suitable for commerce. For example, in the project, we're developing a distribution application for primary producers. Well, it is not enough this platform to work well technically, but it must also be, for example, secure against cyber attacks. It must be in line with data protection regulation at a European level. It must, for example, implement secure payment mechanisms. It must have an attractive interface, which invite you to continue using the product and so on. In this product development task, we have to make sure that all these functionalities are also aligned with the needs and expectation of the consumer, because otherwise the exploitation will not be possible and the impacts of the project will be more difficult to achieve. Therefore, one of the main tasks of the replication plan is to support the technical partners of the consortium so that the product is also developed from the business readiness perspective. Here at ENCO, we have already contacted some partners which are very interested in collaborating with us to develop these functionalities, these new characteristics of the platform, and also with some import, export, and fruit production companies at Fruit Attraction, for example, that find this product really, really interesting. So the first steps are already done. Another important task is to keep all these companies interested, that is to maintain the interest in us. And this is an engaging task, and it is also obviously very important. Second, we have the feasibility study, as you can see. Among other aspects, the feasibility study involves a techno-economic study of the project developments. Obviously, it makes no sense to develop an innovation if for example, the production cost once developed or the maintenance costs are going to be greater than the sales forecast or that the benefits we expect to obtain. Therefore, we are developing a financial forecast as a part of our feasibility study and an estimation of sales. Also, we are at a very early stage to update it throughout the development of the project. And in this way, also to ensure that the technical developments are in accordance with the objectives of exploitation and economic return. We are taking into account, as you can see, factors such as administrative expenses associated with sales and so on. The development and dissemination in all these forums and events is also very important in this sense. Well, the next step, the arrow is missing. The next step, prototyping and pilots are contained in the technical activities of the project. So we move to demonstration and testing activities. Among testing activities, we have to include all those international standards, preferably ISO standards, that allow us to validate our product before putting it on the market to generate acceptance among replication agents. In this sense, in collaboration with the rest of the partners, we have carried out a task of mapping all relevant ISO standards for material, for example, for materials that are in contact with food, for the packaging materials we are developing, good manufacturing practices in the field of food, regulation at the European labeling of food products, and so on. And finally, the recruitment, well, pilots, as I have said, is covered on the project. The next step, the arrow is wrong. The next step is engagement by industrial research team. The recruitment of industrial teams basically refers to the collaboration, the scaling up and implementation of our solution with companies in the sector that in return receive, let's say, privileged use of our products. This will help them to find a differential position in the market or to obtain a differential point of sale with respect to their competitors. With the inclusion of Eroski, Riberebro, and ProExport, as I have said, and also ABQ in the advisory board, we have already established such mechanisms, but we have to develop as many as possible. Evidently, the dissemination of the project in events such as Fruit Attraction is the first step in these tasks. You can see in the slide that we are already establishing contact with some highly relevant industrial and commercial agents that with a presence throughout the world, not only at a European level. The logos have been removed for confidentiality. Here at ENCO, along the research, development, and commercialization process, it is important to balance the needs of industry and sisters, because sisters is impact focused, while industry is concerned with maximizing financial value. If needed, questions about the nature of confidential information, the length of time for a discovery that must remain confidential, or how results can eventually be published can be specifically addressed in the research contract and confidentiality agreement that ENCO as innovation manager will monitor. Of course, aspects related to intellectual property are also very important and must be made clear in the exploitation agreements. In our deliverables, we consider marketing strategies for this recruitment as industrial membership programs. And finally, to finish, just to say that in order to exploit and be able to trade our solutions, we also have to decide on an infrastructure or a fiscal entity that can do it. The first design pulse solution that came at our minds is to set up a startup. And in our deliverables, we also study the feasibility of the solution and we define the necessary steps. It is also very important, as I said at the beginning, the sponsorship by public authorities. Therefore, in future investment and financing strategy, we have dedicated a broad section to map all those regulatory entities in our deliverables that are more synergistic with our project. We benefit from the growing interest that exists in European entities to capitalize and promote the exploitation of all the investments in development and innovation actions that are made at a continental level. Furthermore, here at ENCO, we have also experience in special programs and platforms to accelerate and catalyze these results, as the Horizon Results Booster that you can see in the slide. Well, and that's everything from my side. Here you can see a brief summary of all the solutions that Sister is developing. Of course, if we are talking about the production level, the most relevant are the production and logistics solutions, but also processing, marketing, and consumption levels are also very important. Well, I think I've run out of time, so I'm going to leave it here. Basically, to summarize, my intention has to give you a very general view of the receptivity that exists in the food value chain with a view to an innovation program like ours, and focusing on how to develop an exploitation and a replication plan for innovations at production level as Sister is bringing out. And also to give you examples on the steps to be made. So thank you a lot for your attention, and thank you a lot for SAFE and Innovarium teams for giving me the opportunity. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Really, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm biased because I know about the Sisters project, and it's so interesting to hear from single partners to see what the developments are, and it's nice that we are like indeed following the guidelines of the Commission to have a harmonized approach when tackling these issues, and it's important to stress always the fact that sustainability cannot be only one way, but yeah, it should be it should go in the environmental direction, in the social direction, economic and health. So I think like you gave us the framework of Sisters after this first year of project. And I would try now, so thank you very much. I would try now to give again the floor to Carolina. I will try and share her presentation while she speaks. So Carolina, I don't know if you're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
no worries.
My apologies for the connection problems.
No worries.
I'm really sorry. I don't know if you were able to hear me before, well, I will try to to start again.
Yeah.
You can please go to the next slide. And yes, I was here just explaining that our project is. It has been funded by the European Commission under the H2020 program, under the Green Deal call. The title, as you can see, there is Systemic Innovations for a Sustainable Reduction on the European Food Wastage, and will last for 4 months and started on November last year. So we are now celebrating our first birthday, and the project is coordinated a total budget of a little more than 10 million euros with 18 countries. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, our consortium represents an intersectoral collaboration to address all the food value chain has. For that, we are collaborating with 2 universities, KTH and NTU, 2 research and technology organizations, that is the Foundation Edmund March and ITIP, 2 nonprofit independent organizations, SAFE, the organizer of this webinar, and ProExport, that is association of producers in Spain of fruits and vegetables. And in the consortium, we had 10 leading small and medium enterprises, such as Naturplus, Carbiolis, Gaia, Biomi, ITC, that are involved directly in the plastic and the packaging industry. ARCA to develop the compostability tests that are based on in Italy, and ENCO that you have just know a little bit more about their activities from Sergio. Innovarum, the leaders of communication, Rebus Labs, BMS. BMS will explain after my presentation about the short chain application, and Rebus Lab is working on the sensorizing of containers that I will explain later. And below you can see there 3 entities that are third parties, Cetic Data, that is working with the real green food company that previously was River Ebro, and Ajeque, that is also a third party of River Ebro, and finally University of Trento that is working with Fondazione Edmund March. So you can go to the next slide to see a little more about the reason why we are working on this and why are we here today. And the reason is that Sisters and other projects approaches a global issue, that is the huge amount of food loss and waste generated. Roughly 33% of by weight of the edible parts of food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted, which represents around 1.3 billion tons per year. Besides having a huge ethical and social impact, it is environmentally unsustainable because it affects negatively to the air, soil, and water, and consequently this impacts adversely on the biodiversity and the climate. As an example of the wastage footprint, currently this global food loss and waste accounts for about 8% of total European CO2 emissions, and moreover, this lost and waste food has also a huge economic dimension. As you can see there, is estimated around 143 billion euros. And I have one other number related with the Spaniards that throws around to in food than 45% could have been used if they have purchased and managed or planned better in an efficient way. So we can see that is an important impact on the environment and on our economy, and as a social impact also, and ethical. So you can go to the next slide to explain the sisters approach.
Yeah, I'm trying to go.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We have focused on 5 different stages, and we have focused on one challenge in each of these 5 stages. You can see there in production, we have focused on the surplus that some producers of fruits and vegetables have when these products do not cover the commercialization standards, for instance. Secondly, we have focused on the significant portion of food wastage that occurs during the logistic phase, which takes from the production to the market due to the inefficiencies when handling and transporting the fresh food. Thirdly, despite the fact that there is a global movement around the eliminating plastics and packaging, some goods are required to be packed to keep its freshness. So we are focusing on the sustainability of this packaging by developing new bio-based suitable for replacing conventional plastic packaging materials. And there is a lot of already done, but these materials still need some improvements to reach the market. So we will focus on that. The marketing phase, normally it's observed in some supermarkets that they overstock, leading to waste when goods are unsold, and this is particularly costly when it comes to fresh foods. So we are not talking about only the cost, but also it's a reputational impact that the retailers have today, because consumers expect better sustainability credentials from their chosen supermarket. So we are focusing on that in this stage. And finally, on the consumption, we know, we have seen that up to 10% of these annual tons of food waste that is linked, that we have seen before, is linked to date labeling. So we want to focus on that and see how this misinterpretation of labels, for instance, the expiration date, can be improved. So we can go now to the next slide to see the set of systemic innovations that we propose in Sisters. The first European short chain platform is meant to be to sell the discarded production, favoring local economies, providing access to nutritious and healthy food to the consumers that currently are not sold. And the second innovation is 2 different smart and reusable containers that are being designed to diminish the food losses during the transportation, maintaining bulk and packed food in ideal conditions through the development of new accurate sensors that allows the immediate reaction. And the third innovation is related with the packaging. As I said before, there is a lot of done already, but we need to continue studying the materials and reach the market. So we are enhancing bio-based materials to make them home compostable, and creating different packagings, flexible and rigid, that will be reducing the potential negative impacts on the environment. And the marketing level, we are working on the developing of a seal of excellence for retailers that promote sustainable practices, with information provided to the consumers, for instance, in the consumption, with QR and dynamic labeling incorporated into the packaging. And thus we will know more about the acceptability of the innovations done at Sisters, and increasing the sustainable awareness. We can go to the next slide. Today we will be learning a little bit more about the first point, thanks to VMS, that will be talking after my presentation about this short-chain platform. And this short-chain application is being developed and will be tested with 100 users, primary producers, in case studies in 5 countries: Spain, France, Italy, Sweden, and Belgium is expected, but later we will know more. We expect to test the sensitivity of the sensors incorporated in the shipping containers with 30,000 kilos of fresh fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and fish that will be used in the demonstration activity, covering around 1,700 kilometers of distance in each transport. And we will validate the packaging to see if have optimal conditions of robustness, transparency, and permeability, and also how they behave under, for instance, modified atmosphere with 15,000 kilos of food for packaging tests that will be used to compare with the conventional ones. And we have 30 marketing centers involved that will work assessing through a questionnaire the effectiveness of implementing the best practices recommended. And finally, the usability and impact of the packaging and its labeling will be assessed with consumer acceptance surveys with approximately 1,000 subjects. So we can go to the next slide to conclude. Sisters is expected to be a key European project addressing the problem in a holistic way, reducing the food loss and waste by, as you can see, almost 30% of this food loss and waste, and CO2 emissions by around 20% in the case studies. With the new tools for primary producers for promoting direct and short-chain sales, the new technological innovations in packaging for processors and retailers, and with awareness campaigns for retailers and consumers. And today we are focusing on the first ones, the primary production level, with the food surplus that can represent more than the 20% of the European production, leading farmers to lose a large part of their investment. So, the World Food Day was celebrated some days ago. This day is is to mark the anniversary of the founding of the Food and Agriculture Organization. And that is the specialized agency to lead the efforts to defeat the hunger. So we can conclude that we can produce more to fight the hunger, but also we can distribute it better with new tools for primary producers, for instance, promoting the direct and short chain sales. Around 20 to 40% of food can be sold, favoring these local economies and directly contribute to the Sustainable Development Goal 2, zero hunger, decreasing the food losses and waste, and supporting the local farmers and direct sales. So this is what I wanted to say today. And I hope you have now clear view of our project, the overall view. And thank you. I give the word to Federica. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Carolina, for your presentation. And it was needed just to have a clear idea of what Sisters Project is about. I just wanted to tell you, to tell everybody that if at any point you have questions or doubts, you can just use the chat box to write your questions if you're following through Zoom, or in the comments if you're following via Facebook. So after this reminder, I would give the floor to Pierre.
Hi, hello, Federica, thank you. And I will share my screen, 1 second. Do you see well? Perfect. Okay, hi everyone, thank you for Luigi and Federica for the invitation. So I'm working for BM Service, and I'm going to speak about the short chain app we are developing in the sister project. We are leaders of the World Package 1. First of all, about BM Service, we are a French web agency with a strong experience in the e-commerce field and in the agriculture, because Laurent Capla, our CEO, developed a marketplace called bienmanger.com to dedicate to the sale of food products. And he's going around the world to meet as the most reputable producer in their field to sell the products. And we are part of the sister project since the beginning in November 2021, as say Carolina. What are we in the sister project? We are building a ready-to-use short chain app to help primary producers to sell online their surplus and discarded products. One of the difficulties that the app needs to be useful for direct consumers like you and I, and to wholesalers, because like this, it permits for the food producer to sell different quantities and what he needs to sell because of his surplus and discarded products. So we have to work on the two level. At the same time, we are working to create an European portal. The main goal is to facilitate the link between the producer and consumer, because like this, we can create a unique access points. And like this, consumer and wholesaler can search in real time what is available where and when on the different country in Europe. Why are we creating it? We are creating this app because, as you know, there is different reasons for food loss and waste during the production stage. Two of them is the overproduction and surplus, and ugly fruits and non-standard caliber products, and consumers don't want to buy it, or very rare of it want to eat. For these two main goals, we learned that a digital solution can be useful for food producer to help them to sell their product online and to have a direct link with the consumer. And as said Carolina before, is in the main goal of the sister project. If we can reduce at this level the food loss and waste, it will have I can say, a big impact for food producer on their on the financially, and it's really good for environmental and social situation in Europe. So, about the short chain app. First of all, we realized at the beginning of this year a feasibility study to understand the market and to understand the market, to make a benchmark about what is already existing. And here I can present you the key issue that we find. One of the things is e-commerce sites and apps generate higher price for the producer. So it's a good thing. And so with that, we understand that there is a possibility for them through the digital way to make more money and to sell their products. But unfortunately for them, building an e-commerce website, only a minority of producers is doing it because of technical and financial limitation. It's really expensive for them to build it and to have a good one. And most of them don't have the time to spend by creating a website or the technical support to do it. So that's why we need to find some innovative solution to speed up and reduce the cost for them and to all of them to have a really quickly website online with their products. And one of the key support, I say in Kobe for in Carolina, is to help them to advertise and promote their offers, because most of the people doesn't go to naturally to discount products or ugly products. So we have to help them to create a marketing place to promote their products in order to sell it actually. So after we did this feasibility study and we had a lot of discussion with food producer, we put challenges, and as I can say before, one of them is to developing functionalities to answer food producers' needs. For example, they have to anticipate most of the time the harvest, and for example, they can know before which quantity they have in surplus, more or less, because of a client who cancels the orders because they have a favorable waiver. So they can anticipate, and we have to help them to put online as fast as possible the possibility to sell the surplus. So, another way, we have to create an easy and ready to use solution to help them to answer the lack of technical skills that they may have, and to make at the same time an agile and affordable solution. Like this, we can answer to the economic issue that most of them face. At the same time, as I said before, we have to provide innovative solutions to advertise them. As I've been doing most of this part with the sister partners, and one of the answers will be the portal, because we can have on the same platform most of the advertise and marketing story. So after all of this, we decide that software as a service solution will be the most useful way to give them the possibility to have an affordable and really quick website online. So just to make, if we don't know, software as a service is like Zoom, for example, or Trello that you may use online. So it's not something that you download or the consumer needs to download. It's something you can use online and create online. It may be connected to an app, an application on Android or iOS, but the main thing is to be easy for them to use it. It's that they can access it just by a navigator or website, and they can create the website online directly. We don't need to install anything on their computer or their platform. The other thing for us, which is really important with a SaaS solution, it's really good for SEO, because everyone is connected. So when they put a website online, it will be well referenced on Google, and it will be visible for consumers. And the last point is the price, because with this kind of solution, depends on the European aid we can find later, but on the main, we can give them a really great solution, and with like 10 euros by month, it's an example, but it can be really cheap for them. Not because today when you want to create a really good e-commerce website, you have to spend thousands of euros, and with a SaaS solution, it can be something they pay for 1 month, 2 months, they stop if you don't need, and they can come back. So you can control the price for them. It's one of the main issues. It's one of the main issues we see. To help them and to have a really quick website, we decide to create an open database of fruits and vegetables. Like this, they don't have to write down on the website. They don't lose time. They just have to take a list, and they selected the product. The product can be connected in the second part of the project with pictures, with explication of the product, like the variety of potatoes, variety of tomatoes, and like this, it's really fast for them to create. They just have to put the price basically. And in the same time, still to answer the issue of marketing, advertising, and SEO, we decide to create a European portal or national portals. We can decide to create both, and we will see it in the next part of the project. But like this, we can put every connected website of food producer at one place. It will be the fixing point for consumers, for wholesalers. And it's like this, we facilitate the meeting of offers and demand. And actually, as I said before, it will permit to have in real time what is available and when, and to give dates and to give all the data consumers need. So here you can find a summary of what I said before. I don't precise before, but for the customer, one of the good things to have a direct link with the food producer, the price is lower. It's good for environmental impact, and it's easy to use. In our solution, the customer doesn't have anything to install. For the producer, it's an affordable cost to go online and to have a website. We really focus to have the most easier to use website for them, because they don't have time, they don't have the technical, most of them don't have the technical capacities or support to do it. And on an economic side for them, they can decide the price and they can have the full price for their product. And the last part you can see, it's a technical issue. It's a SaaS mode. I say Calorina for the first version. We will be in 5 countries: Spain, France, Belgium, Italy. And so we have to translate the solution for food producer and for the consumers. So one of our issue and SaaS solution is good for that too, actually, because we can translate the solution really quite quickly and so on, to put at the end any European language online to allow everyone to understand and to speak to each other in order to sell to others products. We use API technology to do that. It's technical things, but it's a permit to send really quickly data in the way you want. But it's part of the SaaS solution. I just don't want to go too much time on it. Our milestones now. We will be launching the first version of the solution in the second semester of 2023. We are for March. Actually, we will focus on the month of March. As said, Carolina, before, we will do a taste phase with 100 food producers in Europe, in the different 5 countries I quoted already. So the really important thing about this taste phase is to try if everything working well, of course, for the food producer, and to have their feedbacks, because like this, we can optimize and have new functionalities for them to implement in the SaaS solution and to give them the best tools at the end. So during this 1-year test phase, we will have a lot of discussion with them at every part of the solution to develop the best way and to optimize everything. And we are in the Sisters project, and we are focused on the market launching in 2024, and with the help of our Sisters partners to develop and to advertise and to market and to put this solution online for everyone and in the most European country possible at the first time. And at the end, well, it's a main part of the sister project. But yeah, with this solution, we hope to reduce to 20 to 40% of the food waste loss for the at the primary production stage. That's it for me at the first time. Thank you really much.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I see in the chat that we have a question for you, actually. So if you would be so kind to reply to the question from Irini. I don't know if you, Irini, want to elaborate more on the question, or
the question I can say for the people on Facebook, the question is, how do you solve the delivery services? As you say, it's an important cost for the product to reach the consumer. So yeah, that's a big issue. There's two kind of answer. For direct client or customers like you and me, the good thing about a SaaS solution and the website online is that you can use different way of delivery, as click and collect or stuff like this, because the consumer can go to the farm directly to do it. For the wholesaler, we have to implement a delivery service inside the solution. That's for sure. That's part of the development, and as you can find for those who know is PrestaShop or stuff like this, we have to implement a delivery solution to connect the wholesaler and to give the real price in the real time for the producer and for the final consumer. But yes, of course, yes.
Thank you very much, Pierre.
Thank you.
And yeah, I don't know if from the audience we have other questions. I don't see any in the chat here on Zoom, and I don't see either on our Facebook page. So I guess we could move to the next section of this webinar. And first of all, I want to thank again our colleagues from ITIP, ENCO, and BM Services for their presentation. I hope the audience have a clear idea of what's happening in the Sisters project. And of course, if you don't have any questions now, but you want to reach out to us in the future, feel free to contact us. And now I will leave the floor to my colleague Luigi, because we will switch to the second part of this webinar, which will be mostly at policy level. So what's happening at European level when it comes to primary production in the food value chain. So Luigi, the floor is yours. Thank you in advance for your presentation.
Thank you all. I have no presentation. I will talk about some data and some things that I think that should be useful to continue our webinar. So we have seen how many tons of food waste are put in the food feed and in the landfill. Sorry, and but we have also to understand which is the percentage that we have for each part of the food chain. We are focusing in the primary production. In the official data are that the food waste or loss, we are going to talk about both, are considered about the 11% of for farmers. It's very difficult to understand which is waste or loss in the primary production. Maybe our colleague of the zero waste, which is one of the projects specialized on also in the definition of food waste and loss, can help us at the end of this webinar. But in general, in the primary production, everything is considered after the harvest, because all the things that are not harvested return in the field, in the soil. So we cannot consider it really waste because it doesn't go to dump, but it's going in the circle, in the carbon circle, again in the nature, in the field, in the soil. So there are some problems, of course, in the primary production. When you harvest, it depends, of course, on the kind of machine that you can use is one of these, but also in the first time that stays in the magazine, you can find some problems, of course. The European Union has well know those problems, so has made the action plan for a circular economy, the Farm to Fork strategy, the biodiversity strategy too. But what I can say more, there is also a part of the waste, food waste, and we can talk about food waste, that is considered due to the retailers. It's just the 5% on the official data. I don't believe it. I know that there are a lot of unfair rules, trade rules, that they use to put the problem, maybe not only to the primary production, but also to the other chain of the food chain, and it should be better known that are those unfair rules in trade that can move the waste from a ring to another ring in the chain. Which are, in my opinion, which are the most important things that we can do in general? As we have seen, the great part of the food waste is homemade. It's homemade, is not in the household, and so we can try to reduce it, making something that is going to do to apply the directive 18 of the 2030. If in Italy, for example, we have made the energy community regarding this directive, and we have done it 2 years ago about the law. No, just 1 year, and we have this kind of energy community, which are going, and we see that they are playing a very important role, especially in this period that we have an energy crisis. We could do the same thing, calling maybe green community. When I'm talking about community, I'm talking about associations, people, villages, regions, and so on, that are going to constitute this community with the aim for the energy to produce and reuse the energy they produce it. But we can do the same thing with the food waste, for example, or for all the things that we can use in our mind for the circular economy. So this is something that maybe should be more to be more considered by the Commission. I think maybe with some regulation, not just with a directive, because to improve the power of the community can improve the decrease of the loss in general and food, of course, but in general. And so applying in a very strictly way the circular economy in the community can achieve better the goals, of course, that we have in the action plan of circular economy, in the food farm to fork strategy and biodiversity strategy. So I think that my speaking is enough, and this is the end. And I can give the floor to the representative of the SEJA, Diana Lenzi, so of the primary production, that can explain us for the things that the primary production in way has still done and is going to down to reduce food loss in general, and sometimes also the food waste. Thank you.
Well, good day, everybody. Thank you, Luigi, very much for giving me the floor. Thank you to SAFE and for the Sisters Project for inviting us. I'm very happy to be here today to be able to bring the voice of the young farmers. SEJA is the European Council of Young Farmers. We represent about 2.8 million young farmers from across Europe. I've been president since June of last year of 2021. And with my presidency, the priorities that we really put forward for the next 2 years are our action plan. Our mission is to look at sustainability from a very farm-centric, young farm-centric point of view, a very pragmatic one, because we know this is the big focus that we have right now on the EU agenda. This is where the Green Deal wants to bring us. This is where the Farm to Fork wants to bring us. But this is also where we want to get to as young farmers. We know we have a system that needs to be readjusted, probably remodeled, rethought through different formamentis, through a different paradigm, because we see that probably we have not been using our resources at our best, maybe our natural resources, but also our intellectual resources. And so we've really decided to take sustainability as a focus on which we want to work on, finding the pain points, the roadblocks, the specific elements that make farming not sustainable today in all of course, its dimensions, and that can probably give new energy, new strength to the sector, and so for the primary production in general. I say this because really, when I look at how things are now coming together, we've already started, we've gone through a big discussion on soil management, soil health, on animal welfare. We're now looking at plants, improved plant varietals, and how this is all shaping up. The concept of zero waste tends to be always at the base, or kind of the final point where I really see sustainability taking its form. If we were capable of using our resources at their best capacity, but also in the best possible form, we would have a productive system that is capable of regenerating resources and protecting itself while still managing to produce. And part of the resources that are being wasted are also, let's say, the human resources. So there is still not enough individual capacity, collective capacity in the farming system to understand the needs, the necessities, the information that might be useful in making decisions that are more that take in consideration every single element, and that have a more analytical capacity of understanding one's mistakes and fixing them. And in this, what we see is that probably the fact that many elements have been overlooked is one of the true things that is holding back the sector from being truly efficient. There are so many byproducts at farm level that are still not being utilized at their best. That is a form of waste, because those are resources that have been put into the system in order to generate those elements, but then have no output, have no second life. And so many of the elements that come both from the strategy on circular economy and bioeconomy are very interesting for us, because they can help not only utilize at their full extent, for example, all of the elements, all of the products that are coming from a primary productive system, but also reinsert them into the economy, generating profit, generating even, for example, rural livelihoods that create economy through creating more needs, more elements, more downstreaming the byproducts into a new form of economy that still insists on the territory. And this is for us fundamental, because one of the other things that we're seeing is the great loss that we have at both in terms of farmland, but of also farm resources. We have a very scarce generational renewal, and instead we believe, or I believe, and what we're seeing is that by integrating as many possible models, by creating synergies, by creating collaborations at local level, this is one of the ways through which we can recreate decent rural livelihoods. We can recreate rural economies, and this is fundamental because it's part of our tissue as territorial tissue as Europe. So I really believe, and this is something that we will be working a lot into the next year, is that the capacity building that is necessary for young farmers to become more analytical in their capacity to see their farming practice, to improve it, but also to see what has not been used so far and what could be a possible use and what could be the possible even economic benefit, is what will really make the farm more sustainable, because it can integrate economy, it can destroy loss, and therefore profit the whole society at whole. I've been rereading a very interesting report that was actually published by Kopa Kojek a few years ago, that puts together a lot of case studies of different projects across Europe that have already been working on food loss, on food waste, and how, for example, products that maybe don't fit size, caliber to go into the supply chain could be reutilized. There's a very beautiful project in France called Solal, where they tried to address even the fact that, for example, collecting byproducts is an expense for the farmer, it's time consuming, but that when creating a system around it, when creating side companies that actually do that as their main form of income, this takes in a way back from the farmer the pressure of having to organize the collecting. And now we were seeing this also in the previous discussion, delivery, collecting, aggregating is probably one of the problems, but aggregating instead people who are willing to cooperate and who are willing to inform the supply chain that there is availability and stock of a specific product in one farm, can help then add to the food banks that are in the territories, that can help, for example, cooperate with different charities, and that can provide food for people who, for example, can't provide for themselves. But there was also another one that was very interesting, because sometimes farming systems that tend to be very fragmented tend sometimes also to have overlap. So in a specific territory, there could be too much production of one product for the supply chain to actually absorb it, and this creates waste and loss. So cooperatives, and there was an example of a cooperative in the UK that farms over 3,800 hectares on peas, but they have a calendar system by which it shows it manages to supply the supply chain at the right quantity at each specific time without creating overlaps. So the fact that it's basically it's a subsequent farming system where one provides at one moment and one at another, but this is then covers the whole market for the whole year, providing fresh produce and not creating loss because of overlapping of products. But then there's also the circular economy looks at it in so many different ways. You can create energy from products that haven't entered the market, but then you can also create, and this was an example that came instead from Denmark, you can create mushroom fertilizer from the byproducts that come from the biogas residuals. So creating even more, it's like a double circle. Not only was part of the manure used to create biogas and so create energy and so not have loss or not have even a climatic impact coming from the dairy system, but then the residual that came from there was then reinserted into the system, into the farming system to create fertilizer for the mushroom industry. So there are really infinite programs. Also, Hungary had quite a few. One had a really funny name, which was ugly but tasty, and it reminds me of an Italian cookie that is called brutto ma buono. The fact that it not always has to be something that looks perfect to actually be appealable, but you need to educate people that it's not that perfect caliber, it's not the perfect size, it's not the perfect shape that is going to make the perfect taste, that the taste is something that is much more intrinsic, it's much more intimate to the fruit. But it becomes also a cultural shift that we have to do at whole in a society. And this is also one of the things I always kind of state and kind of push on when I look at the feasibility, for example, of the farm to fork. The farm to fork will only work and will only have a capacity of really delivering a more sustainable food system if both sides are included. Because if everything is done only on the production side and all of the investment is done on the sustainability of the production side, but we don't have a civil society that is ready and willing and informed and has also understood the necessity of a more sustainable consumption, it's never going to work. You're just going to have a lot of effort lost in the chain or in the system. So as much effort needs to be put into the consumer information and into the consumer shift of habits and of buying, as much as in the production system. So even shorter supply chains, we have a lot of those examples in Italy that work very, very well, and putting in direct contact with the farmer and the consumer allows also for the consumer to directly acquire what his specific need at that time is without going into a system of potential loss. And then I still believe there's a lot that, for example, we could do as a farming community in terms of also educating people on the full use of food. I used to be a chef, and in a restaurant, you don't throw almost anything out, or at least in the places where I work, they would basically cut your hands off if you were to throw too much of a carrot off, and because that becomes stock, and there's always a second use for everything, which is also why Anthony Bourdain taught the world to never eat meatballs in a restaurant. It's because in a meatball goes everything that's left in a fridge. This is just but there is also a culture of having the capacity to use everything. And this is also something that comes a lot from the farming community traditionally, knowing how to use products and reutilize through time. Italy and Tuscany have two big examples. One is the ribollita soup and one is the panzanella salad, that are ways of reusing food. And
the bruschetta too.
And the bruschetta too. So there is, I think we've lost touch with a lot of things. We've lost touch with how food is produced. So with agriculture at itself, with a cultura agricola that comes also in the respect that farmers have towards the food that they produce and the produce that comes from their hard work. And as much as, again, as I said, the effort needs to be collective. I see a lot of very interesting examples coming from the primary production. I see a lot of interest in terms of young farmers as looking at it as one of the ways to also improve their sustainability, but even also their economic sustainability, knowing that the more resourceful you are, the more profitable you probably will be. And so I think these are just some examples. And again, but it needs to go in a much broader, let's say, cultural and shift. And I see I have a question. I absolutely agree. I will read it out for the people who are not following us on Facebook, that it's a comment that we have to actually re-educate people about the real quality characteristics of food, which is not perfect, color, and shape. I think that assumption happened because of the marketing messages of mass production that focus on color and shape rather than taste, smell, and nutrition. So we have to go back to the basics. It's one of the things I hope to work on in the future is projects for schools where we teach kids, well, because normally the school meal is something that is really balanced, it's really well thought. At least in Italy, there's a lot of work that is done in that sense. It would be nice to also teach kids what is that vegetable, how it looks like, how it comes from the earth, and the fact how it tastes. Re-educate them to taste, to seasonality. Teaching people seasonality is another way of reducing waste. We don't need to eat strawberries in December. We can wait for strawberries in May and be happy of when they arrive. But it's, again, we've lost track. I think we all got absorbed on even the beauty of globalization, that you could eat anything at any time, anywhere in the world. And so I think this kind of drugged us in a way for some time. But if we want to look at a way in which we consider the world sustainably, in which we respect the resources, the limited resources we have, we will have to take a step back from this kind of ingordigia, I can't think of the word in English, that we have towards food, where we just kind of want to have everything always.
Thank you very much, Diana. And indeed, I think we've become a bit greedy, no? So I totally agree with you, because it's so easy to find everything everywhere. So totally. Thank you very much, really, for your speech, your talk. I might have a question, but I would first leave the floor to the audience if they have any other comment or questions. So, and otherwise, I'll take the opportunity to ask you something. And I think I will. Now it was really interesting to hear the way you presented the issues and the solutions that you want to put forward, while focusing on all the different problems. But I was very much interested in the part of your presentation when you said that you would like to create synergies at local level. But I was wondering, and that's my question to you, while creating synergies at local level, wouldn't it be also how would you switch then from local to the general EU strategies? Or is it like a step forward? Because I mean, the way you presented is try and interact with all the local communities at all level of the primary production. So trying to have the farmers also starting programs to educate consumers, and the other way around. So having an interaction at local level, but then how to switch then to national and European level.
That is a good question. I really believe that the complexity of the problem, and even the complexity of EU farming, doesn't allow for the famous one solution fits all approach. So I truly believe that we will have to go through a huge patchwork of tailored solutions. So investing in the knowledge and skills of the future farmers is really important to give them the capacity to look at local level, what they can do, where they can improve, what synergy they can create there. Then I also believe that peer-to-peer experience, and we have so many new, very interesting, very mind-opening platforms that put into connection different farmers from different parts of the world, will allow, for example, and again, also there you need to educate, and education in the farming system is a huge problem. There's, I think the statistics was that more than 64% of people who work on a farm have no specific training for it. So have had no education in agriculture and economics in any of it. But so if we were capable of creating a curious new generation of farmers, they will also have these new instruments where they can discover, for example, that if they have, I'll try to imagine it as if it were my case. I'm a wine producer. I have, for example, we have grape skins that we have to send them to and have them distilled, but maybe I could discover that somewhere in France or somewhere in Australia, they're using that to make it become an essential oil or something that works in creating heat, or something that can work as a feed for sheep, and then the cheese is like a really flavorful cheese. I'm really just going off the top of my head, but I would be one of those people who looks into these platforms and thinks, oh, if that worked there, maybe I can find someone here. So I could then look if there's a shepherd next to me and create a synergy with him and say, I could provide you this. And then we could have, and this could create again. So the scaling up will have to start from local level. What I expect from the EU institutions is to create the enabling field, is to create that space, that capacity, and even that capacity of understanding the financial needs that a farmer will have to do this type of investment, that is what they should be investing on. That is where they should be putting the money. That is where they should be really supporting the projects, the innovative projects that look at how to create sustainability, how to create profitability, how to enhance the farm to fork, how to move towards that. Look at it, and also making sure that those are solid business plans, and that is what they should be investing on. That is kind of, and this is what we try to do also when we discuss a lot with the EU institutions. We try to be propositive. We say, okay, we have a problem of soil. This is what we need in order to have better soil management. These are the instruments. This is what we need to be provided with. This is what should be in a soil strategy, because this is what the farmers need. And it's through dialogue that you can co-create, you can co-design, you can hope to co-design EU policies that then don't become just top-down strategies like the farm to fork that scared for a very long time the farming community. And now I think they're starting to look at it like, okay, so if this is the big frame, how do I make sure that in how it becomes real at grassroots level, instead it's an enabling system instead of a destructive one.
Thank you very much, Diana, really. I see Luigi maybe wants to.
Yeah. Just a little thing. I agree with all of the things that are told by Diana. I want just to remember the local is very important, because we are seeing something that was written in the encyclica of the Pope when he talked about the deconstructions of the society. It seems that the only way to have an environmental friendly food is to produce it in greenhouses, vertical greenhouses with the right in hydroponic. So you give your right water, the right nutrients, and you don't use the soil, but you directly, but use lamp and lights, and of course with the solar electricity. But you throw away all the biodiversity and all the dishes, for example, which are linked to the cultural heritage of the single territory. And this is something that we are going to lose, and we haven't to do it. I think so. This is just my thought, and I think that we cannot stop with the coffee break because we are a little bit later, and I think that we can give the floor to the third section of the people of this the speakers, sorry, of the third section, and so let him explain all the things that we supposed when we programming this webinar should be interesting for people who's looking this webinar. Okay. So.
Yeah, indeed. We can give the floor to Angel, who will present another project that is part of the same Green Deal call of sisters. And I leave the floor to you, Angel.
Thank you, Federica. Let me share my screen. Can you see the full screen now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present 0W. So 0W is the short name of Systemic Innovations Towards a Zero Food Waste Supply Chain. And 0W is part of the same call under the Green Deal as the Sisters Project. And our projects are actually have a lot of similarities, which is interesting to explore. I'm from ICLEI, Local Governments from Sustainability. So we're a city network. We have offices all around the world, but I'm part of the European office. And in our role as in Zero Waste, we basically liaise with other EU projects and focus on stakeholder engagement more generally. So what is 0W? It's an innovation action. It was launched in January this year and will run until December 2025. The total budget is more than 12 million euros, and it's a very big consortium with 46 partners from 17 different countries. So a lot of different work streams that I will be talking about in a minute. So basically, the idea of 0W is to reduce, valorize, and prevent food loss and waste. So really these three pillars of the circular economy. And we demonstrate the reduction of food loss and waste through 9 living labs, which we call Systemic Innovation Living Labs, or SEALs. So just for you to know, this is kind of the jargon we use within our projects. I will be talking about the SEALs, but these are the living labs. And they span the entire farm to fork value chain from pre-harvest to consumption. And as I said, they really implement the different circular economy principles: prevent, reduce, and valorize. So as you can see here, what I want to present today is rather than going from 1 to 9, because we have 9 living labs, I think it makes more sense to categorize them by circular economy principles. So which one focus on prevention, which one on reduction, and which one on valorization. And to start with, so we have some of our SEALs that focus on prevention, including SEAL number 1, which is basically an open data-driven IT-based solution that will capture food loss and waste related data throughout the supply chain. So really, the solution aims to empower the stakeholders to make smarter and more sustainable decisions when dealing with food loss and waste. So this is really kind of the foundational SEALs of our project. Then the second SEAL aims to prevent food waste through the use of sustainable, smart packaging at retail and consumer levels. So it's very concrete. As you can see here on the picture, it will focus on fish, on oily fish actually. And the idea is to develop an intelligent, sustainable packaging solution which will be made of bio-based and biodegradable materials, and which will include a freshness indicator. So basically an intelligent label that will provide visual information about the state of the packaged food. And additionally, it will basically work together with a software that will read the freshness color changes of the label and transform them into a remaining shelf life. So this really is a concrete solution that allows to increase the shelf life of oily fish. Then our seal number 3, it's actually very relevant to the discussion today because it's the main living lab that focuses on primary production, on agriculture per se. And it will aim basically at preventing food loss at the pre-harvest and harvest stages for fruit and vegetable greenhouse farms. So how does it work? Basically, the focus is on tomato crops, and they will develop novel remote sensing solutions to monitor crops, to monitor basically the ripeness of fruits and estimate yields. And then this will allow to basically evaluate automatically the produce quality at the pre-harvest and harvest stages, and to optimize the harvest scheduling depending on this assessment. Then we have another seal, which is the number 6, that really looks at the supply chain with a focus on a specific product, which is breaded poultry, because breaded poultry is one of the most wasteful supply chains in the food sector. And the idea is really to develop a data-driven production process control. So our partners focusing on that seal will basically use specific technologies to target variables and to also analyze the process parameters along the entire supply chain of the breaded poultry. This, in the end, will help optimize and reduce food loss at each and every stage of the food chain, at the food processing, let's say, of breaded poultry. So here we're moving into the reduction of food loss and waste rather than the prevention. So the second principle of the circular economy. And one of the key living labs on that aspect is the one we have on consumers. So as I mentioned, it starts with the agriculture side, which I just presented before. And now we also move to the consumption side, because we know that reducing food loss and waste begins and ends also with the choices that consumers make. So it's a huge level that we have to pull as well. And the objective of this seal in particular is to develop recipes and menus with low expected food waste, but also to develop a food loss and waste label that will be combined with other environmental indicators and that will aim to inform and trigger consumer behavior change. So really, this one is the main living lab that we have that focuses on consumers. Then we have another one which focuses on food banks, because food banks are also key, and their efficiency is key to reducing food loss and waste and to repurposing food waste. So the idea here is that we observed that food donations have a very irregular and uneven flow, and that this results in inefficiencies in utilizing these donations. So this specific living lab will look at how to ensure a more efficient matching of supply and demand, but also will help food banks develop improved food waste reduction strategies, and also look at food insecurity and food poverty more generally. Then moving to valorization, we have a living lab that will look at mobile food processing units. We have a picture here. It's actually already existing. It was developed as part of another project called Fox. But the idea here is to really go further and to investigate the potential of this mobile food processing unit to valorize large volumes of fruits and vegetables that would otherwise go to the bin. And in that case, the idea is that they will be processed very on-site, really close to the crops themselves, and be processed into healthy and tasty processed juices, purees and smoothies, and ready to drink products. So really the idea is to start from right after the harvest and make sure that these fruits and vegetables can be valorized directly into alternative products. And then we also have another living lab that will really complement this one, because the idea is to identify ugly food early on and make sure that it won't go to the bin either. So here the idea is to develop this machine that you can see on the screen. So basically the idea is that this is a multi-sensor platform that will have the capacity to analyze and process around 300,000 fruits per hour. And that will be able to classify them in 3 categories, depending on whether they fit the caliber that is required for retail. And based on these 3 categories, the ones that are considered as ugly food will be directly sent to a valorization supply chain, where they will be processed into other products. So really this idea is to make sure that early on and before they go to the bin, these ugly food products are identified and sorted differently from other products. And finally, last but not least, because we have a lot of different living labs here, the last one is really to use food waste and repurpose it for microalgae cultivation. So how does it work? Basically, the idea of this seal is that it will develop a pre-treatment solution within the food retail sector, because they will dehydrate food waste resulting from retail and use it as a culture medium for microalgae. So this will be used to feed microalgae that will then be used by the cosmetics or sustainable packaging industry. So really, this is at the very end. In that case, we focus on valorization, and in the end, it will be used by other sectors also for other high-value alternative products. So all in all, this shows that our different living labs, they cover all the circular economy principles. They cover the entire supply chain from production to consumption. But they are also, and they really form the core of the project, and all the activities will build on these living labs. So what do we do apart from these living labs? We will develop economic models for food loss and waste with a view to inform decision-making at the policy level. We will also build a food loss and waste data space to support data-driven solutions to reduce food loss and waste. And we will also make sure that we assess regularly the environmental sustainability of the solutions we develop, while keeping this systemic innovation approach and looking at all the living labs in a holistic way. We will make sure that this is also participating to a just transition. So we have a dedicated work package that looks at just transition pathways towards zero food loss and waste by 2050. And our policy work package will work closely with the Commission. And of course, to make sure that the innovations that are developed as part of the projects can actually sustain and be taken up by different industries, the idea is that we will have an exploitation and commercialization strategy as well. All of this will result in, we hope, a short, mid-term and long-term impact with a view to reach near zero food loss and waste by 2050. So this is a bit of an overview of the project. Basically, it's a very comprehensive overview because we have all the living labs. But if you have any question on a specific living lab, I'm really happy to answer it. You can also find more information on the website. You can see the link here and also on our LinkedIn page. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Angel, for your presentation. And to, of course, like it would be interesting to learn more, but we don't have the time. Luckily enough, we are in contact. So I really kindly invite all of you to have more, to get more information on the website. And last but not least, I will look forward to another very important project, which is not under the same Green Deal call, but it's very interesting to, I find it very interesting to have it here with us, because it's tackling also the same issues. So I would just give the floor now to Irini.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to present our project. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Sorry, I saw that Carolina put the hand on up. So I don't know if she wants to make.
I'm sorry, I can hear someone speaking on the background. If they can mute themselves. Thank you. So I hope you can see my screen. My name is Irini. I'm from Plan International, who is a development consulting company based in Thessaloniki, Greece. And we are the coordinators of the AgroBridges project with the full title, Building Bridges Between Producers and Consumers. I'm going to give you some very brief information about the project and the consortium, then a little bit about the context and rationale, the objectives, the actions, and some facts and figures, and what we would like to do regarding synergies with other projects. So the main aim of AgroBridges is to try and build bridges between producers and consumers by providing practical knowledge and support to farmers in order to assist them in rebalancing their market position through creating new business models based on short food supply chain principles. The project established regional multi-actor structures, so involve the stakeholders in our support in order to create demand-driven innovation. And this will be done by delivering a combination of practical tools that they will all be packed in one platform that we call AgroBridges Toolbox. The overall budget of the project is around 3 million euros, which is 100% contribution because it's a coordination and support action, and has a duration of 36 months. And the project started in January 2021 under the topic of Horizon 2020 Rural Renaissance and the call connecting consumers and producers in innovative agri-food supply chains. The AgroBridges Consortium is led by Plan International and includes a total of 15 partners around Europe, located in 11 countries and representing 12 focal regions, which are the regions the project is focused, which we call beacon regions across Europe. So what is the context and rationale behind the project? The short food supply chains and the definition we give for the project is supply chains that have as few links as possible between the primary producer and the final consumer who eats the food. They hold promising potential for sustainable development in agriculture because they introduce economic, social, and environmental benefits. Economic benefits mainly because they help rebalancing the market position of farmers and increasing their income, and also better connecting them with consumers and reducing intermediaries. Meeting from the social point of view, also meeting the societal demand of providing safe and quality local food. And also from an environmental point of view, they help reducing the environmental impact because most of them now try to have eco-friendly farming practices, also less packaging and food waste because of providing fresh food, and sustainable logistics that led to reduced need for storage and fuel. Yet studies show that many farmers are still not tapping into the potential of short food supply chains. So the objective of the project is to help them towards that direction by providing practical knowledge and support to help them set up short food supply chains and link the producers with consumers and also public procurers, because public procurement is part of our support. We do that by delivering a decision support tool to facilitate the selection of the most sustainable business models to be adopted for short food supply chains. And in addition, we offer a combination of communication materials, training programs, event guides, and digital marketing and networking tools to assist collaboration in the food supply, all packed in the AgroBridges toolbox. And as I already said, we have established regional multi-actor structures and one international one with representatives of those regional ones in order to develop, test, validate, and roll out our tools, take into account the feedback of the stakeholders, representatives, of course. Our project is structured in 7 main work packages where we have these four main actions. First, analyze the current situation, identify barriers, and co-create solutions, which has been completed, and all the results are openly accessible for anyone who is interested. We have already uploaded some of the information on the Zenodo platform, which is open access. And now that recently our deliverables have been approved by the Commission, we will also upload them, all of them, on our website. The main part of development has been finished. So we developed tools for selecting suitable sustainable business models and also tools for connecting and building capacity among farmers and consumers. And now we are at the stage of actually starting the 4th phase, which includes testing and validating of those tools with the involvement of our stakeholders in those multi-actor platforms in each region. And after that, we will use their feedback to update or finalize the tools where we need to do that. We start the rollout process, which will be beyond our regions and involving more stakeholders in order to actually use these tools. Some facts and figures is that we already said we have 12 focal regions that we focus on. We expect to have 24 regional events for building the short food supply chains. We already have 12 of them. We are going to create 36 practice abstracts using the EIP Agri format. And of course, the main product will be the 12 digital tools in the AgroBridges toolbox. So we hope that through this, through our project, we'll increase the number of farms that will be involved in direct sales or in short food supply chains in general. We envisage cooperation in the project with more than 400 agri-food stakeholders involved. Also training using our material, we envisage that nearly 150 farmers and stakeholders will be trained on topics related to short food supply chains. And of course, the main impact that probably is a little bit challenging to measure is to actually enhance, help farmers to enhance their farming position by increasing their profit. We of course, if at this stage I don't have time to say many details about the tools or whatever we have already produced, but we also create synergies with other projects, and Sisters Projects has been invited to participate in one webinar that we have in November, where we will explain in detail the tools that we had developed in AgroBridges, and all the partners and stakeholders of Sisters will be invited to participate. Here I just want to focus on the synergies we expect with other projects. What we can offer is knowledge produced through the studies and surveys about the barriers, needs, proposed solutions at high level to bring farmers, producers, closer to consumers, and they are openly accessible. We also offer access to AgroBridge toolbox after it has been tested during the rollout phase to anyone interested until the end of the project, which is the end of next year. And we also offer communication and dissemination of other project news and progress via the AgroBridge communication channels. If you communicate this to us, we will be very happy to communicate it as well. What we are looking from other projects, similar projects, is to help us rolling out the AgroBridges toolbox to the relevant stakeholders at local and EU level. Also, in some cases, we might need access to expert stakeholders for providing feedback on some of the project's results, even though this now has already been done, but we might have some need in the future as well. And we're also looking to help for other projects to help us communicate and disseminate project news and progress via other projects communication channels. And here is some information on how you can follow us on Twitter, or on our website, and on LinkedIn, where we have our social media. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Irini, for this insightful presentation. And really, like, it's nice that, as mentioned before, everybody is working with the same focus on reducing and avoiding the final step, the food loss and waste. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I see one comment from Angel.
Yeah.
You might want to check the coach project. They're also focusing on short supply chains and rebalancing the position of farmers. And this also includes pushing for more public food procurement from small farmers around cities. Well, thank you very much. But I have to say that part of our project is to create a common and joint synergies, we call it clustering plan, with the two other projects of the same call, and Coach is one of them. So we have already a very good collaboration with Coach, and we know in more detail their needs, and we have regular meetings, and they will be also presenting in the next the webinar that we are going to have in November. So these are two other projects, is Coach and Coco Riado. If you want to know more about them. Thank you very much.
Nice, awesome. Thank you very much. I don't know whether there are other questions, comments, doubts to be clarified. Now is the time to do that. Okay, I have a question or comment. Since we are all creating synergies and among the projects, I would like to take this opportunity to apart from thanking you again, but to underline the fact that we are indeed all the time cooperating and trying to make the best out of all these projects, because the aim, the goal, the final goal will be indeed to change at European level the way we produce and we consume. So I just have these questions / invitation to all of you, the speakers and the audience, to provide us with feedback or strategies that we could use to reduce, to avoid overlapping work, or to create more synergies among the projects. So we are on our path, on our way, and I think we are working pretty well on it. So, but if anyone has suggestions, advice, and comments, feel free to contact all of us. I will write down in the chat the links to follow the Sisters project, and feel free to follow us on social media and to contact us directly through our email addresses. And I don't know, I will ask maybe the cooperation from Andrea of Innovarum to check whether there are questions on the Facebook chat, because here on the Zoom chat, I see nothing. And feel free to talk, to unmute yourself independently. So. Andrea, do you see anything on Facebook? I don't think so. Okay. No, she doesn't see anything on Facebook either. So, well, it seemed that we were running out of time, but then thanks to all of you, we recuperate the minutes, and I think it was really enriching, and as I said at the beginning, I'm very grateful to have had all of you here for this first webinar of the Sisters project. The next one will be next year, so we will present other results regarding the second step of the food value chain. So we will inform you of the next developments, and you will see on our website, on our social media channels, all the new developments. And of course, we are very curious to see how the first implementation, the first innovations will be developing in the next couple of years. And yeah, if you don't have any other questions or comments, I will leave you for a lunch break maybe, because then we all might be interested in following the 13th meeting of the European Platform Against Food Loss and Waste. So it's also good actually that we are a bit finishing a bit earlier than planned. Okay, well, I take this silence as a goodbye silence, let's say. So yeah, thank you very much again to each and all of you for your participation, and we'll keep in touch for the next steps in each of our projects. So thank you very much. Carolina raised her hand, I see.
No, thank you. I was only just to say goodbye and thank you for the organization. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice day, all of you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.